What's up, everybody? Justin here, and of the other student ministry podcast, and we're about to enter into part 2 of a conversation with Matthew Ferrer, our worship leader here at CCV, and also co-host of this podcast, about continuing the conversation about student-led bands when it comes to leading worship. We had a conversation; it went long, but it was good. So we didn't want to, have you suffer through an hour-long conversation. So we wanted to break it up into 2. So here we go, part 2 of the conversation of student-led worship bands. What would you say, if someone wants to start a student band or they have a band or they want to get students more involved than they are, what would be some of the hacks / first steps to at least get the ball rolling?
Yeah.
What would be that process?
Gosh. My greatest, and this will be my one soapbox moment, and I promise I will not do it again. The greatest thing you can do is stick to the vision and commit. And know that for 6 months, you will not find anyone. It will be rough. You will try everything you can. You will find one singer after that. She will be off key. It will be rough, but you commit and you continue to invest. Then you'll find the drummer who can kind of play, but he plays with brushes and hot rods or something like that. So it'll be a culture shift, and you'll have to say, no, I want you to play this. And then I don't want you to play with the double bass pedal. And then I want you to listen to more Katy Perry than you do Metallica, that type of thing, So we're getting more so into the world of music that we're trying to live in, and know that that it's a process. And so commit to the process and commit to the goal and commit to the vision and then execute it. And it's going to be really easy to be man, it's our big night. Okay, let's just call in the weekend, guys. Let's just bring them in because we need it. It's going to be big. It's going to be huge. Just commit. Let those ones who are not quite there yet have that experience. Because at some point, to be honest, if you look back, even in your leadership, someone lets you have that moment. I can think of the song for me. I remember the song very, very clearly and vividly. Well, actually, there were 2 songs. There's an old Hillsong United tune called "You Deserve." Mm-hmm. That was the song I always led when I was in high school. For some reason, that was the song. It's not for some reason. It was this is the song that Matt leads. And it gave me the reps. And so at a certain point, I got comfortable with the song to where I learned how to lead then at that point. So I wasn't just performing the song. And that was, this the whole other conversation of there's a difference between worship leading and performing. Mm-hmm. But I learned how to lead. And so I took strides then in leadership. And then on the weekend, the song was Cannons by Phil Wickham, And so that song, I feel like everybody knew as soon as that intro is hit who was singing the song. But it afforded me the opportunity to learn, which was really awesome. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
that's great. So, to kind of sum up or whatever is if you're looking to get the ball rolling, just know where you want to go and know that it might be painful to get there, but stick with it no matter what. Because what we've seen is that students will come eventually.
Oh, yeah.
They're taking a while. It takes a while because once you get a student up there, other students notice because they're oh, that's one of us.
Yeah.
And over time, they're okay, what are they going to do with her? Is she going to actually sing?
Yeah.
She's actually singing. I could do that. And then they, then they start slowly but surely start coming around. Because for us, I remember we had a lack of dudes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we got a dude up there and I was oh, then 6 months later, a couple more, and then a couple more, and so it's just kind of and it's just through sticking through it.
Yeah, and we're a context for us. We're 3 years in right now. We're still not where we want to be. We just this past month, it was when our kids ministry was having their kids camp for the summer. So we had this quick turnaround and that type of thing, and we were doing Wednesday night, literally an hour after they finished, and we had to be done. And I this was mid Broken Foot. So I was sitting in the back on keys, music directing, looking around at the band and had this moment of, it was a grand page turn for me, where I was every single one of our leaders on stage, with the exception of Nick on bass, is all a student. And we are not skipping a beat. It sounds really good. Mm-hmm. And they've gone beyond just sounding good to these are good leaders. They lead our volunteer team members into worship just as effectively as they lead their peers. Mm-hmm. And so it was this like grand page turn moment, and I was like, stay the course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're getting there. And knowing full well, maybe we're not going to see that until year 5.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll look back at whenever that is and be like, man, this was so worth it. And then the really, really cool thing is you look back then in, 10 years after that, and you see those students leading our congregations, this church, the church down the street, the churches across the world in worship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, what a really, really cool thing to see some students like given an opportunity, given a safe place to succeed and fail, to learn how to lead, and now leading us before God. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's the best.
Mhm.
Now, Matt, our context, we're, decently sized church. We have a worship pastor
Mhm.
on staff,
Mhm.
doing that. What would you say for someone who, is maybe part of a smaller or lesser resource church
Mhm.
and they want to do the same thing? Does this disqualify them because of what we're doing? Or like, how would they go about, let's just say like, well, I don't have a guy on staff to lead worship, or I don't have, that many students to pull from.
Yeah.
What would you suggest to like even start that process?
Yeah. I think size does not disqualify you. None of that stuff disqualifies you. I think that's actually really interesting because it goes back to the first question we answered today from the email in question. If that's something that you really want, if a student led band is something you really want, and that's what you're going to commit to, that's what you should put a majority of your chips into then during the work week. So that's going to the plays that you're already going to them. Your student in the ministry, like as the lead role or whatever in the musical. So you're going to go watch it, you're going to go sit down, have the
Right.
popcorn. I'm trying to think of a musical right now, Hairspray or something like that,
Mhm.
and then
You
you're
just prayed that you could leave during intermission without them seeing you. Right?
yeah.
Like-
But you're, in that, like you're standing, you're watching, and then afterwards, like, hey, there's like, they just got through an entire musical. This could be your person, and then you start to develop that relationship and foster that. And then it's you just play the long game. You
Mhm.
commit to that, and you invest into that. And I think if you can enlist coaches that at all, like that's huge. Chances are, you probably have someone around you that's musically inclined that can teach them how to read music and chord charts and stuff like that. And you'll have to draw certain boundaries. Like for us, we're not a music school, so there's certain standards to which students have to hit to be on team. And those are all scaled by grade as well. So like if you're a freshman, for example, and your pitch is a little weird and you're not quite memorizing lyrics and stuff like that, but you can kind of like generally sing, awesome, that sounds great, like let's go for it. Well, if I've got 4 years with you, we can make this happen.
Right.
If you're a senior, it's a little dicey, and so this might not be the role that you serve in. That being said, if you don't have that luxury, maybe that senior is that first person who's going to be the one who paves the way for the rest to come. So it's just identifying those students and those leaders, and then spending some time investing into that. And if you're not musically inclined whatsoever, maybe that's finding your music minister or your music pastor or whatever that looks like at your church and being like, do me a favor, this person, we really need to raise this person up. Can they come to coffee with you and talk music and that type of thing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
good. And too, like I think part of that too is just having the realization that lack of quality in music will only be made up for by having the peers up on stage.
Mhm.
Like it erases the lack of quality, because I'm all about quality. I
Mhm.
want like the best of the best, right?
Oh yeah.
And so having students on stage, you won't get the best quality, but the power of
Mhm.
having a student up on stage, just even for a song,
Yeah.
is way more like
Huge.
effective than
Huge.
having like good quality stuff. So
And at some point the quality will come. But that's the long game. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
yeah, no, that's good.
Mhm.
What so got 2 more things and we'll wrap up.
Cool.
What's been like the best thing? Like, as you're developing students and walking them through the whole, being in the band, whether it's from drums to tech to all that stuff,
Mhm.
what's been like the best thing, and why? It's basically the answer, like why should we go towards a student-led band? Because the payoff is great
Yeah.
in a whole bunch of ways, but for you, what's been like the best
Yeah.
thing to see and watch?
Oh man. I'm just gonna go through stories. So, okay. So we mentioned Spencer earlier. Spencer is a fantastic student. She's a freshman now. She'll be a sophomore in a few months. Spencer came up. She had an audition and auditioned, and we were like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's go for it. She wasn't terribly confident in the moment, and continued to place her on bands with students who I knew would be good, like influences in her life. So that's our like upperclassmen students, our juniors and seniors who are established, good leaders, and really kind of creating like a mentorship, even like a peer-led mentorship type thing. And people who are really bought into the DNA and the culture of what we're doing, of high celebration, that type of thing. And to watch her go from, you're on line checks, you're trying to get them to sing at like a healthy level so front of house has something to work with, and having to like bait and beg a healthy amount of like vocals out of her, to she is like killing it on Wednesdays now. And she's got room to grow, as we all do. But just watching her start to flourish in that, and knowing that we've got 3 more years is huge. That's my favorite thing. We've got a drummer in the same way, who like the first time he played,
it was rough.
Yeah,
I remember it.
Oh yeah. I think we all, Sean, I think that was your first night. It was like one of the like first 2 like times he ever played. And I remember knowing that Sean was coming, and having this moment of like panic as we were supposed to hit a big chorus, and then there were no drums because he had forgotten the groove. And I was like, we are here. And you negotiate the moment. 6 months on now, he just played, I believe it was last week, and crushed it. And he had his moments where he forgot, and that's okay. And he's a freshman, and we will move past those things, and we will get to a further point down the line where, dude, he'll kill it. He'll be awesome. I think 2 more. We've had a senior girl who started within the ministry. She same type of story. Found her voice, found her confidence, and is now leading worship on the weekends. Like, we just led Sunday night last night, and we led side by side, which was so cool. And not like by no means was that like I'm with them and like, okay, we're like gonna do this. Like, she led the congregation of adults before God.
Yeah, talked before, prayed before, set up the song before.
Yeah,
did
beautifully.
Everything. Yeah.
And it's like she has the full confidence of the weekend team to go out and effectively lead. She had just led at one of the campuses down the road that morning, that type of thing, And then finally, one of the very first students that I kind of alluded to that kind of paved the way, she was a summer intern of mine last summer. And just watching her transition from like, I serve on team to now, this is what she's going to school for. Not particularly within worship ministry, but ministry in and of itself. Like, she's a Christian ministries major at APU. And watching her go through all these things. And then she was heavy on the worship side, on the band side of things while she was a student. And then she jumped into the production side of things of worship, learning how to do ProPresenter, learning how to do Photoshop, all the different things that like make service happen, and help create and foster environments. She dove into that to have a better and broader understanding of worship and how to develop a culture, that type of thing. And now she's doing these things actively. Like, she is every week serving on the weekend, that type of thing. She's investing into our preteens area. So our small, like, little DNA culture thing. We have our freshman, sophomore students who serve on Wednesday. They serve once a month on Wednesdays, and then they serve twice a month within our preteens ministry, because it's a safe place to succeed and fail as you're learning to lead.
And they get a lot of reps.
And it's good. And it's not like, it's not unimportant reps. It's not the minor leagues. They're getting effective times to lead worship and to teach worship as well, which is really kind of cool. So they're investing back into the ones who are just underneath them. They were just there in that season in and of themselves.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that college student, she is now investing into those people, and she was one of the first. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I'm just really grateful, honestly, that like God would do those things and pave a way to make those things happen. And it's year 3. It's exciting to see at year 3, like looking forward to like year 5, what that's going to be like.
Awesome. That's the best. Some of those stories are cool. It's just fun to see full circle. You know what I mean? And just encourage too, like it can happen. It just takes forever. A little bit, like, so be patient.
Yeah.
If that's something you want to do, like it's literally, it's taken 3 years to get to the point we're at now. So Matt, just to kind of end, what would be some practical hacks just to get, just like things that you use now, maybe 3 years in, that you're like, oh man, I know that we use, Pro Presenter, which is like, the media service that we have with all the slides and all that stuff, and Planning Center, right? Like that's how you schedule everyone, and we plan all our services on that. Is there anything like that you're like, man, if in order for you to have, for this to be successful and how we've seen it be successful, like you need to know these things? Any hacks on those things?
My best hack I can offer is one that I learned from this model. It comes from Saddleback. Comes from a guy named Taffy, who does it the best that I've seen, to be perfectly honest. And so I've tried to model a lot of what we do based on what they do. And I know there's a lot of forms out there, and a lot of things, information sheets and stuff like that for when you want to jump on teams. But my number one hack is we do this thing called the CRUD form. It's commitments, requirements, understandings, and dress code. It's all the things that we need to talk about before we can get on stage. And that has been a huge asset to our team and to the process of getting students on. So the process, when a student wants to get involved on team, they email me an MP3 or a video of them doing their thing. This is the spiel I always say. I say, hey, you send me an MP3 or video of you doing your thing. It could be whatever song you want. It doesn't have to be a worship song. I wouldn't choose All the Lights by Kanye. But I want to see something that captures your best performance. So if you slay Sam Smith, I want to hear you slay Sam Smith. If Oceans is your song, man, play Oceans. If you rock the groove from Go, play Go, that type of thing. I just want to see it happen. And then that you send in the video, it can be as beautiful as a studio recording, or it can be as awful as an iPhone recording. I don't overly care. What that does is that sets up a commitment level. That sets a standard to where if students aren't willing to do that, chances are they are not going to, well, it's twofold. Chances are they're probably not to the standard by which that you want to set. The other side of that is there's a good chance, and we've seen this, that if they're not willing to jump through those like technological hoops, they're probably going to have a really hard time with Planning Center and accessing charts and MP3s and lyrics and those type of things.
And committing to learning all this chords and the charts. And
exactly. Because we run on a really limited time schedule on a Wednesday. We run service rehearsals day of, and that's a big thing for us culturally, is that rehearsal is a time to polish and perfect. Practice is a time to learn. We're not showing up to practice. We are showing up to rehearsal. And so having those students coming and knowing their stuff is so key, because we can't sit there. We don't have the time in our hour and a half to like learn the music. We're there to hit those moments. That way we know that we've set up a good foundation to be able to lead from. Yeah. So all that to say, they send in those things. Myself, sometimes an MD, sometimes a coach. We will all review the videos, MP3s, whatever. Make some notes of things they did great, some things they need work on, and then based on the scale of like standards of like, hey, this is where we think a sophomore should be, and we base it off the California state standards, by the way, of just public schools of what they should do. Mm-hmm. Where they are skill level and ability wise, then we come back, have a conversation with them of like, hey, that was awesome. You did this so great. Like your ability to hit that high note was so good. Your timing was a little off. So that's something that we'll work on as you jump on team, that type of thing. And then we jump into the CRUD form, and the CRUD form sorts out all the stuff, like commitments, like, one of the commitments is I am more committed to your relationship with Jesus than I am you being on stage, and you need to know that, and your parents need to know that. So if at any point this relationship ever gets weird, if at any point like you are turning this into a platform to perform as opposed to a tool to lead, that type of thing, we'll step back for a little bit, have a conversation. We will do our best to see you grow in this way. That type of thing. Requirements. We have a GPA requirement. I think it's 2.5 with no Fs, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Because the last thing I want to do, and I've had these conversations, and this is just me not wanting to have these conversations anymore. I don't want parents to call me and be like, "Hey, I'm really stoked that my kid is serving. Why are they failing biology?" I don't know. They're not doing their homework. Well, they're always here at the church. I'm not having that conversation anymore. So
Right.
this sets it up. Understandings. These are like big cultural things. I understand the value of being an encourager and celebrating people and celebrating what God is doing. That's a CCV DNA thing, but even kind of more applicable and 10,000-foot level for everyone is like there's a difference between worship leading and performing, things like that,
Right.
things that are very like cornerstone things that we need to talk about and make sure that we have down on paper and that we know and understanding before we move forward. And then dress code. Finally, it's like we do stuff with cameras, and so based on cameras, it's stuff like no solid black shirts, because if it's a solid black shirt on camera, you're a floating head. No solid white shirts, because a solid white shirt under the lights, it just gets awkward for everybody involved. And then I have to have that conversation, or I have to get somebody else to have that conversation. So we're just not going to do those things. And that's the ability to see that ahead of time and address that ahead of time. And it's not just like technical jargon. Like it's written based off our values, and it's like kind of funny. Well, I think it's funny.
Yeah.
Like how it's like all explained, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so they get that form, they fill it out with mom, dad, grandma, stranger on the street, that type of thing. There's a place to initial for every single line. It might seem like overkill, but that's how you know that they read it for them and that parent guardian all the way through. And then there's a contract on the back that, all that type of stuff. Big thing too is making sure like you don't have any like I don't want to see stuff. The big thing we added this past year was making sure like we don't see stuff on social media, that type of thing.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's a big
But
deal.
that's like youth pastor, like that. That's all of our lives.
Right. No.
Forever.
Just when you look at your feed and you're like,
Awesome. You just led the set.
Here's a conversation
Yeah.
that we're going to have next week.
Yeah. So
yeah.
but that weeds all that out. Or
Yeah.
no, I shouldn't say that weeds all that out. That sets the standard to now, if those things happen, that we have something to fall back on.
Right.
Like, we talked about this. Like, let's talk about this again.
Yeah, which is good. So in the CRUD form, we'll put it in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's you adapted that from Taffy at Saddleback. Like that's his baby. It's his thing. Like, and
I'm
just
forever in debt.
Yeah, I know.
He did a lot of the legwork of that, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and you adjusted it to like our language and culture and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a form that actively changes year to year. So we're in the, I think right now the form's at like 2.3 or something like that. The 1.0 almost is identical to what they had. This latest, like next generation, is, man, I wouldn't even say skeleton it's not even the same in that way. And the thing is, like next year on the 3.0, it will probably be very different as well. And it's just, as you learn, like one thing, like, gosh, I'm going to freaking throw fidget spinners in there, because if I see another student who's supposed to be advancing through Pro Presenter slides being late to stuff because they have a fidget spinner in their hands, I'll just go like lay under a rock or something like that.
Yeah. You'll quit music altogether.
Yeah.
Worship Jesus by yourself alone with no music ever.
Yeah.
No, man, it's good. So Taffy, I mean, if you want to see how he does it, I think he's one of the best.
Yeah.
At Saddleback, I think he's probably provided more churches with worship leaders than any other person I know.
Oh yeah.
And so he's great. And then we'll attach our version of that form to the show notes and to be a part of that. And so, man, Matt, thanks for like talking through a little bit of that. Like what I'll also do is I'll post a link to like our services. So if you actually want to see what that looks like in motion and see how Matt leads and how students are leading, and I'll also attach like Matt's email. So if you want to bug him on how he does those things, because I think he's also one of the best. I'll put it all in the show notes down the bottom. Yeah, man, thanks for walking through all that stuff.
Thanks for taking the time.
It's a really big deal. And also, I want to do just kind of plug my friends over at Download Youth Ministry.
Yeah,
because Jason Carson, aka founder and drummer of the Supertones,
nice.
has a whole resource on there that's awesome of like how to start student bands.
Oh heck yeah!
And so I highly recommend that as well. So maybe a combo of this conversation versus that and just bugging Taffy at Saddleback. I think that's a good start and foundation to starting a student band and developing that student-led culture within your church. So Matt, thanks for talking through it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what happens. We're going to talk a little bit too about more like, the tech side of things. We're going to talk about culture eventually in that. So there's more conversations to come, guys, but thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Again, hit that subscribe button if you have not. Make sure you say hi to Sean on the couch. What up, Sean? And we are excited. So send in your questions too. The other student ministry. I got download youth ministry. My friends are thinking, I'm thinking of you. Josh, Doug, Allison, Ashley, Chip, Sherry. Hey, the other student ministry podcast at gmail.com. Send us your questions. We'd love to chat through that, and then use hashtag YMHacks. Add to the conversation, and let's talk about some of the hacks that you got going on. So Matt, thanks again.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the next episode. Let's go.